Hi, this is Cheryl of Fiddle-Dee-Dee Designs, and today I'm here to share with you how to use one of my layered templates. I'll be using Photoshop Elements 2018. However, you will find that the instructions will work very similarly in previous versions of Photoshop Elements, as well as in Photoshop Creative Cloud if you have that subscription. So just to give you basics, if you're just starting with digital scrapbooking, a lot of people are paper scrappers before they come to digital scrapbooking. So if you've been a paper or traditional scrapper, then you may have followed a sketch of a layout in order to create your own layout. In digital scrapbooking, we really call those sketches templates. And basically, a digital scrapbooking template is made up of layers of different shapes that will give you suggestions of where to place your papers, your embellishments, and your photos. So you're going to be kind of following it like a paint by number or a puzzle. It actually allows you to quickly create a layout with your photos and some papers and embellishments. You're not having to think about the composition of the page, and you can create something beautiful in a very short amount of time. So I am going to be using a freebie that I have on my website. Each month I have a new freebie, and currently it's January 2019, and so I'm going to be using Fiddlesticks number 43. I will place the download link to this template in the description box below, but I have already downloaded it and unzipped it, and you'll see here there are a couple of different file types, and depending on your software that you're using, you may need to use the pings, which are the separate pieces or layers of the template, and pull those in individually. But since we're using Photoshop, I'm going to use the native Photoshop format, which is a PSD file, and I'm going to click on that, and I am just going to drag it down to the Photoshop Elements icon, and you'll see that Photoshop Elements opens up, and then I'm going to drop that on to the open canvas there. So before we do anything with the template, let's go ahead and save it under a new name. That way the original template will be safe from any changes and you can use it again and again. So we'll go to File, Save As, and I don't usually save it in the folder with the actual file. I have a separate folder that I've named Layouts in Progress, and I'm going to call this Template Tutorial. And I already had one named that, but I'm going to just go ahead and replace that. So you can see it changes from the Fiddlesticks number 43 at the top to Template Tutorial at underscore WIP, which is work in progress. So now that we have saved that, we can move on. Sometimes when I use my templates, that I start with placing the photos in. Other times I start with the background paper or an element, but I'm going to be starting with, I think I'm going to go ahead and just do the photo placement. So on the right side of your screen in Photoshop Elements, you'll see a layers panel. If you don't see it, go to the toolbar at the top, select window, and come down to layers and make sure that it's checked. Now when you do that, your layers panel may be somewhere else. It may be in a subsection over here, or it may be just a separate little floating window. I like to have mine docked at the side because it allows me to work more quickly. So to dock it to the side, you just kind of drag it over to this area and kind of keep hovering until you see the blue line and the actual little thumbnail ghost out, and you can let go of your mouse at that point and it will actually dock that layers panel over to the right. I just find that is a quick way to do that. So What we're going to do now, since we're going to start with the photos, I'm going to make sure that I am on the photo layer, and I am going to then pick my folder for my photos. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller so you can see here. And I'm just going to control click until I have the 4 photos that I need for this. And I will then just click and drag them into the photo bin. So you can see at the photo bin, you can change what is selected down here. Obviously, tool options shows you your tool. Layout gives you some different viewing options, and your organizer. Some people use their organizer as a way to organize photos and digital supplies, so you may need to use that. I'm using a different program today. But you can also use File Explorer to access your downloaded embellishments and papers. So we're going back to the photo bin, though, you'll see that it's open here below. You can also minimize it if you don't want to see it at all, if it's a bother to you. You know, I find it helpful to see what I currently have available, because sometimes if I have several things, it's easier to see what's down there. So for this layout, I want to show off the apple pie that my daughter made, and I want the largest photo to be the one of the finished apple pie. So that is this last photo here. And I'm going to go back to my template, and I'm going to make sure that photo layer is selected. And you can see that it is, because it has a little bounding box around it. That's what they call it. It's like a little dotted line, and it has little tiny squares at the corners and then the midpoints. And you'll also see over in the layers panel that the photo layer is selected, or it's highlighted in blue. It may be a different color in your program. I think it may all be blue. I'm not sure. I haven't. I've used Photoshop Elements 11 for many, many years, and have just recently gotten Photoshop Elements 2018. And of course, with every version, things are a little different in each one. And you may find that the instructions may be a little different if you're using a different version of Photoshop Elements or Photoshop. So, but just make sure that layer is selected, and then I'm going to come back over to that photo, and then I'm just going to drag it down and let go, and it's going to open over my on my canvas, my template, and it's going to be over that photo spot. Now you can see it's quite large. Your photo may be a different size depending on your camera phone or your DSLR, whatever you're capturing images with. So I want this to be smaller. So you'll see if you hover over the corner that you'll get a transform tool, and you can make that smaller or larger. You can go in and out. And then you'll press the green check to commit to that particular action. I'm not going to commit to it because I want to show you that if you don't use this corner and you just use the side or the top, you'll see that the photo is skewed or distorted, and we don't want to do that. We just want to make sure that all the layout of the photo remains the same from the original. So I'll just make sure that you get that diagonal arrow pointing up and down, and then just reduce the size of your photo. And I need to make that just a tad bit bigger. So now once we're here, I can simply delete that photo spot, because that's telling me, hey, you should put your photo here. But if you do delete it, then you'll need to apply your own shadow style, because you know, it adds a bit of realism to your digital scrapbooking layout. And I do have a shadow set style. I'll link that in the description box below, but you can also use the styles that are available just in Photoshop. So you may want to choose a simple drop shadow style. But I want to keep the little white border that's around the photo, as well as the drop shadow that's on it. So I am going to do what's called clipping. I'm going to make these two pieces kind of sandwiched together. And you can do this one of two ways. Make sure that your photo layer is selected. You'll right click and you'll get a box that pops up, and you can choose create clipping mask, and you'll see here you get a little downwards arrow with a little square showing you that's your object and that you have clipped it to that photo layer. And when you look at your template canvas now, you'll see that my photo is there and that now you can see the shadow of that photo layer as well as the white border. You can still move your photo around at this point. You can also increase the size of it if you need to, if you just want to show off a certain part of your photo. In this case, the light is a bit distracting there. So a little light that was showing. So I'm just going to actually bring that down a little bit so you get it exactly where you want it. And you can just press the green check mark. Now, another way to do this is I'm going to go ahead and jump back a little bit. I'm going to transform again, make sure my photo is right over that photo spot and about the size I want it. Instead of right clicking and choose create clipping mask, you can press while that layer is selected, press the Alt key, and as you hover over with your mouse over the line between the two, you'll see that little square shows up with the down arrow, and once you press click, it does the clipping mask for you. So there are two ways that you can actually clip those two pieces together. So again, I'm going to hide that little light down there at the bottom. It's a little distracting to me, and I'm going to commit to that change, and I can leave these as they are, just clipped together, but and sometimes I'll leave them open until the very end of the layout, and then I'll actually merge the two pieces together. You can do that now or you can do it later. The reason why I wait till later is if I change my mind and need to move the photo even more or resize it for some reason, I still have the ability to move this around no matter how many steps I take after I've done this. So we're just going to leave it clipped right now, but if you do choose to merge down or merge the two layers together, you'll press Control E, that's the shortcut. And once you do that, you'll see that it's just showing photo now as the layer, and instead of the cream colored photo spot, you'll now see that the photo is showing there in the layer thumbnail. I'm going to undo that choice, and to do any undos, you use Control Z. That's a shortcut for there. So now we've got the photos placed. I'm going to quickly place my other photos, and you'll see I'm following the same steps that I've shared with you before. I'm going to make sure that my photo layer is selected. I'm going to go to my photo. I'm going to drag it down onto that template, let go, and then I will do my transforming. And then when I'm ready to click, I'll choose the Alt button and I will clip that. And I can use the transform tool to transform this photo around, and I will press the check mark to commit. Again, just continuing to follow. pressing Alt. Now doing my clipping mask, choosing the next photo, dragging it down, doing my transforming or resizing. And of course I'm doing a little rotating here, so you'll see when I'm doing my rotating that arrow becomes curved to let you know that you're just rotating. I'm going to commit to that. Again, pressing the Alt key to get my clipping option. And so I have everything here now. Okay, so now that we know how to do that, let's go back to our photo bin. You can click between the tools and the photos here. And I'm going to click on the first photo, then press the Shift key and click on the last one, and you'll see that those photos are then highlighted. I'm going to right click and then press Close. So that just removes them from the photo bin since I'm done doing that. Now at this point, it's a good idea to routinely save. So you can go to File and press Save, or you can use that shortcut that you saw when I pulled out that window, which is Control S. So you can Control S periodically while you're scrapbooking, so that if for some reason your computer crashes, that you have your layout saved and don't have to start over from the beginning. So now we're going to move on to the paper, and I'm going to go down to the background paper of this template, and you'll see that I have that bounding box all the way around that background paper. Now you can just choose to put a color in here, but often it is flat looking, and we want you know, a little bit of realism to our digital scrapbooking pages. You may have a different aesthetic and you may prefer more graphic design. That's up to you. But we're going to be using some papers and elements from a digital scrapbooking kit. So I've downloaded my kit, and actually I'll be using 3 different kits today. I'm not sure which I'm pulling from, but they're all from Kristin Aagard at the Lilypad, and I will link the products in the description box below. I am going to go ahead and look at some of the papers. I really like this newsprint. You can see here a variety of papers that I have to choose from the different kits. And I'm just kind of wanting to go with something solid. So I've picked that for my background. Now I can go ahead and click on that and drag down. And then it places that into my photo bin. Or I can choose multiple items by using Shift click and dragging them into the layers panel. Now this program that I'm using here is called ACDC 18. It's just a manager of digital items, and it works in a similar way to File Explorer. So if you don't have this program, you are not stopped from using a digital scrapbook template. You just need to navigate to where you have unzipped these items on your drive, and once they're unzipped, then you can drag them in the same way into your photo bin. So I'm going to close out those again because I was just showing you an example. I just want that one paper brought in. I'm going to go ahead and close. I'm done with the photos. So I do like that text paper, so I'm going to drop it in. And then, you know, I make sure I'm on my background paper layer, and I'll pop it in there. You can see it, it's right above the background paper. I can clip it, or I can just simply delete that layer. Now, if for some reason you are not on your background layer, so say you're above this tag, you have that tag element, and you come in here and you drag that paper down, it's going to put it right above that whatever layer you've selected, but you want it above your background paper. You can simply come to this layers panel, click, and then drag down, and then it's where you want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and I'm going to move to my next paper, which is a rectangular shape here. And I am going to choose this little plaid paper here, and I'll drag it down, and I will drag it onto my canvas. And as you can see, I didn't make sure that I had that paper block selected, so I just need to move it up above the paper block. And then I'm going to use the same method I used before with the clipping mask. And again, you can right click and create clipping mask, or you can press Alt and click, and it will merge or clip those two together. I'll move on to the little pennant or little notched piece of paper, and I'll use this little apple paper and drag it down, and then again pressing Alt and click and clipping that cute little apple paper to the pennant. Now you will see on this particular template there is a paint layer, so it looks like someone has painted on your background. There are two ways that you can add color to this paint. You can use a fill or adjustment layer with a solid color. So once you choose the tool up here at the top of the layers, you'll get your window that comes out, and it's showing you can pick a solid color at this point. You can pick the colors that are shown here, or you can hover over your canvas and you'll see this little eyedropper tool that shows up, and so then I can click and choose that color. You can see it's putting a whole 12 by 12 of that color there, and I'll press OK. And if I want it to be clipped to the paint, then I just press the Alt key, and again you'll see it's going to clip it down, or you can do the right click and have it clip there. So on this particular one, the red's not really the color that I wanted, so I'm going to delete that layer. And I am going to come in, because the other option, the other way we can do this, is to use just a piece of paper. A solid paper works really well for paint, and then I can make sure that I am pulling that right over the paint, Alt click and clipping that. And I like the green paint a little bit better. So now you know about clipping, and that's really how you're going to get your papers and different your photos on here as well. But now let's talk about embellishments. So on a lot of my templates, you'll see flowers. It does not mean you have to put a flower there. That's just saying an embellishment might look good here. You may think that an embellishment doesn't look good here. You like the way the photos are arranged, but maybe you want your embellishments in a different place. Feel free to delete these layers as you need to get what you want on the template. This is just saying, hey, this is a good way to make this layout. So I'm going to go back to my photo bin down on the bottom. I'm going to click on the first paper, and then I'm going to shift click on the last one. Again, you see them all selected. Right click and press close, and that empties my photo bin. I don't know why I do that. I just routinely do that. Now that we've added the papers, the paint color, I'm going to save again. Again, you can go to File and Save, or you can use Control S. So now let's, I'm just going to continue doing a couple more things for this template. For some of my templates, I have each flower in a separate layer, so you can clip papers or solid color layers to make your own flowers, but I generally just use whatever is in the kit. So I'm going to make sure that the flower is selected. When you see that I've selected the top layer of that flower, there are actually 3 layers that are linked together. You'll see the little chain highlighted in yellow. So there it is. If you shift and click, you'll select the whole flower. If you don't want to see it anymore, you can click on the eye and it will actually remove each layer. You can right click and you can say hide this layer. It will hide all 3 of them at the same time. And then you can turn it back on, or you can completely delete this as you need to. So I'm just going to make sure that top layer is selected, and I'm going to go back over to my supplies, and I am looking for a flower. I like this one. I'm going to pull it into my photo bin. I'm going to pull it onto the canvas, and I can transform it and make it smaller, just as I did with the photos, and place it above the placeholder. And since I don't want to keep that flower, I'm just going to select all those layers, right click and press delete, or you can press your delete key on your keyboard. I am going to be adding a as you can see, there's no shadow on it right now. I want it to look a little more realistic. I'm using my shadow set. You can use what comes with Photoshop Elements. It's a drop shadow set, but I'm going to use my own. I've made my own that I like, and I do sell those. I'll link those in the description box below. I'll press onto that, and it's going to add that style to that object. So I've added that photo there. You can see there. And for here, it says, okay, there should be an embellishment here, but I don't want it to be a flower. So when I go back to the options, I'm going to choose this little half of an apple as a embellishment. So I'm going to pull that onto the canvas. Again, using my transform tool to resize. And then if I hover outside of it, you'll see I get a little curved arrow, and that will allow me to rotate the embellishment till I get it just like I like it. I'm going to delete that flower placeholder by selecting all those linked layers. And then on the apple, I'm going to add I think I'm going to add like a metal or bulky item shadow to it. And so that gives it. So there's that placeholder there. And I will continue doing this until I have added every piece of the puzzle. And if I want to add more, I certainly can. So if I wanted to add this particular pie, let's make sure I have my photo bin open, pull this down. Say I wanted to add the pie element right here above these photos. So let's just make sure those are selected. I'm going to pull my pie in and I resize however I want it sized, and then I can add a drop shadow if I want to move it over here, if I want to move it over here. Again, this is templates are just a great way to quickly place things so you don't have to think about composition or where you want things. All right. Now, to go to your text tool, you'll just click on the layer, and you may not have the font that is on the template. That's okay. You can just say font substitution. It'll substitute, and you can click here, and you can choose um, other fonts that you may want to include on your layout. So I hope this has helped you get started. Remember, we want to save frequently, and once we get to this point, if we've decided that we want to change the name of this, we can go to File, Save As, and I can click on Template Tutorial, right click, and press Rename. And I, I think I'm going to title this Apple Pie Time. And this has my daughter in it, so I'm going to put her name, and then I am going to put the date of the photo, which I know was the 21st of November of 2018. That's how I keep track of my layouts. You can name yours however organizing works best for you, but then I'm just going to press save, and it's going to change the name from Template Tutorial to Apple Pie Time Olivia. So I hope that I've answered most of your questions for using a template, but if you do have other questions, don't hesitate to comment or send me a message. My contact information will be in the description box below. Thanks, and happy scrapping!